honest answer from you. Is it too late to build a reading habit?
A lot of people say that, practice makes a man perfect. I would say perfect practice makes a man perfect. What is that one thing that students should not do?
Please do not guess. I think that's the one thing that will save you from the negative marks.
Okay.
You don't know what you don't know.
0 is better than -1. So if you're not sure of the answer, at least you get a 0. Don't use ChatGPT or any other AI blindly. I believe you have to take the CAT, not ChatGPT. So the right way to use ChatGPT would be...
Hello everyone, it's 5 months before CAT or approximately 5 months before CAT. And we already have a lot of students asking us so many questions about how they should prepare, what they should prepare. Now, I'm thinking that we have answered quite a few of these questions earlier, but it's always good to do a recap. So today, I thought I would get another opinion into the picture. We have Hemang sir with us, and he and I are going to talk about some of the questions that you have been asking us for quite some time. So, Hemang sir, the first question is, what is the right way for someone to start preparing for VARC, assuming they have done nothing till today?
Okay, so let's assume you're going to start your preparation today, just after watching this particular video. So I would say the first step, obviously, is to have that belief that yes, 5 months is good enough to crack the verbal section. So, starting with that confidence always helps. Second step would be to know the target score that you wish to get. So I would say, if I look at the last 3 years, a score of about 20 odd has, fetched a percentile of 85, which is good enough to clear the cutoff. A score of 30 gets you that coveted 95 percentile mark, and a score of about 40 gets you that 99 percentile mark. So first, you should set your targets right. If you are at, let's say, 30-40 percentile today, you should go incremental. First try reaching that 70 percentile mark, then that 85 percentile mark, so on and so forth. So that consistent slight upward movement is the right way to go ahead, I would say. And obviously, to reach that number, we'll have to put in the necessary efforts. As we always say, start with 2 RCs a day. That has been the golden mantra throughout all IMS videos and verbal advisory. That's a good starting point. The idea is to build consistency, right? You need to train yourself to read high intense, dense material for 20 minutes. Slowly, we'll have to take it to sometimes 3 RCs a day, sometimes 4 RCs a day, so that you get used to those reading for 40 minutes. Secondly, for VA, typically you have about 8 questions, and on the D day, or rather the C day, you will have about 15 odd minutes to solve those 8 questions. So we should get into the habit of, let's say, taking 10 questions in a set and solving it in about 20 minutes. So 3 to 4 days of RC a week and 2 to 3 days of VA a week would be a good combination, right? Secondly, I would say that a lot of people assume that there is no theory, there is no technique to solving RCs. We beg to differ. So maybe in a later question, you can tell them about how to approach an RC. So I would say spend some time in knowing the right approach to RC so that you can practice well. A lot of people say that, practice makes a man perfect. I would say perfect practice makes a man perfect. So first learn the right technique of solving RCs and then start applying the same to your daily routine. So good mixture of RCs from different sources, different topics, let's say sometimes history, sometimes science, sometimes philosophy, and consistently practicing the 3-4 different types of VA questions should be good enough for those 5 months. Obviously, we'll have to throw in the full length sim test at some point of time. We can start with, let's say, 1 test per week now for the month of June, July, and slowly take it up to twice a week, and then maybe even 3 times a week closer to October and November. So targeted practice and full length sim test is a good combination to ensure that you hit that 99 percentile mark on the verbal section.
Okay. Sir, I have a related question. Now, I'm hoping that the answer you give is something that I also want to hear, but still, honest answer from you, is it too late to build a reading habit?
A very interesting question.
Yeah.
So I would say, if somebody starts reading now, never have read, let's say, even 5 books in his lifetime, will he ever catch up with somebody who has been a voracious reader throughout? I would say most probably he will not catch up. But if he starts reading now, will it help him do better on the day of CAT? My answer is a definite yes. Why? Because you will build stamina, you will build that ability to read intensely for those 40 minutes of the verbal section. So if you are not a reader, I would still suggest, yes, you should start reading even now, 5 months away from the day of the CAT. Now, I have a question for you.
Okay.
A lot of people tend to have certain misconceptions about the CAT verbal section. So according to you, what are those common 2-3 misconceptions, and what is the mindset shift required to break those incorrect habits that people have developed?
I'm actually pretty happy you asked me that, because I would have brought it up anyway. I think the number one misconception that people have is that VARC is intuitive. It's a language and we are used to speaking and reading English, right? But then I just want to remind everyone that it is not really a test of language. It is supposed to be a test of verbal aptitude. So there is something different you have to do. What is it that is different? That is what we try to teach you in class. So VARC may be intuitive to an extent, and yes, I agree, some of you out there might be geniuses at it. I'm not one of those people. So for me, technique works. I am not fond of guessing, because every time that I guess, I get the answer wrong. So when we tell you that there is a 5-pause approach to VARC, there is a reason we're telling you that. Please follow it, particularly if your accuracy is suffering. Or if we tell you that there is a sort-link sequence approach to solving para-jumbles, again, do understand why we are saying that. So it is not entirely intuitive. Technique is important. The other thing that I have seen a lot of people do is believe that somehow learning grammar and vocabulary is crucial to doing well in VARC. I don't understand why that would be the case, because first of all, grammar and vocabulary are not being directly tested. If your grammar is poor or your vocabulary is not absolutely fantastic, maybe somewhere you might lose out on a few marks. Maybe you'll misunderstand something. But at the same time, I would say that it's not absolutely essential to have a fantastic vocabulary, because they're not testing it. You just need to read every day, look up words that you don't understand, and that's about it.
Correct.
Any other misconceptions that you have heard of, sir? I think those are the only two that I could come up with.
You have, picked up the right ones. So I would like just to summarize what you said. So don't look at this section as an English section.
Absolutely, yeah.
Look at it as a reasoning section. So, people who have that slight disadvantage when it comes to the language, they can still get the confidence of doing well on the C day, I would say. Now, again, a related question, since you spoke about technique.
Yeah.
So a very common question is, how does one score high consistently? The keyword here is consistently on, let's say, RCs. So if you can elaborate on, you just mentioned the 5-pause technique. So if you can elaborate on the 5-pause technique and any other technique you think will help students do well on the RC section.
Okay. So the 5-pause method actually is something that we advise you to do all the time, although maybe in not as much detail as we teach you. So for example, when we teach someone how to solve RCs in class, we say, read one paragraph, take a pause. Read the second paragraph, take a pause. So the 5-pause approach basically is about taking these pauses at the right time. Now the logic behind this method is that you need to be reading actively. It should not just be reading or moving your eyes over the text and not really retaining or understanding anything. So the 5-pause technique is supposed to encourage that. Now, pause 1 in this method is after every paragraph. At the end of the entire text, you pause again and ask yourself, what did I read? What is the author's argument? This is the second pause. The third pause is when you read the question. Now, at this juncture, a lot of us simply don't understand the question. For example, if the question is asking us, why has the author said something? It's a why question. They're not asking you what is the author saying. So if we misunderstand the question stem at this point, most likely you will go wrong. The next pause is very, very important. It is the option elimination pause. So there you have to go through each option. And the moment you read the first option, you have to ask yourself, do I want to keep it or eliminate it? Now, what most of us do, and I have seen this happening all the time, is that we read all the 4 options and then we say, I think option 4 looks like the right answer, right? That's not supposed to happen. So you read the first option, you say, I want to keep this. It looks okay. I don't have a reason to reject it. Read the second option. You might want to reject it because you have a very good reason to do it. Third option, fourth option, same way. Now, at the end of it, if you are like normal people and me, and Hemang sir may usually, you will be left with 2 options still, right?
Perfect.
Right? So, what do you do at that juncture? There are 2 roads that you can take. Number 1, go back to the text, see if you can eliminate one option, find a good reason to do so. However, if you have a shadow answer to match your answer to, then I think you're much more likely to be able to eliminate one of those close options. So the shadow answer is something that you need to frame right after reading the question. It should not happen after you read the options, because then you're biased. The options are not your friends. The options are actually there to trap you. At least that's what I believe. Right? And the final pause is the shall we lock this question sort of a pause.
Okay.
So at that juncture, you have to decide, do I want to answer it? Do I not want to answer it? I know it seems like we are taking a lot of pauses, but all of this has to happen flawlessly in less than 2 minutes, which is pretty much the average time that we would take per question. Now, at that juncture also, if you are stuck with 2 options, you absolutely cannot decide. What do? You leave the question. It's absolutely fine to do that. I mean, there is absolutely no one who's asking you to solve the entire paper. In fact, I think, Hemang sir, would it be right to say that we have to solve half to 2/3 of the paper to do well?
Yeah, I think solving 2/3 of the paper should be good enough. It should take you that 90-95 percentile mark pretty easy.
Absolutely.
And I always say, 0 is better than -1. So if you're not sure of the answer, at least you get a 0 and avoid that negative.
I think I completely agree with that. So now we talked about RC. I'm also just going to add on the VA part here, because that will come up naturally. Just like RC, for VA, different question types have different methods, right? So for example, for parajumbles, we have the sort link sequence. Again, it sounds like it's a lot of steps, but once it becomes ingrained, if you are practicing parajumbles for 2-3 days straight, let's say, every time you're doing the sort link sequence, when you're solving a parajumble in a test, it will just happen, right? It is like learning any skill. It's like learning to drive. You don't actively think about, now I'm turning the steering. It just happens, right? So that's what we want you to get to. Similarly, when we do the odd sentence question, now please do practice odd sentences. Don't think it's a variation of parajumbles. I don't need to do it. There is the labeling method. Then summary questions, there is XYZ. So there is a method to everything. Please practice it and you'll get better. That's about it.
Fair. So let me summarize what you have said so that we also practice for the summary questions. So there are 5 pauses, like you mentioned, for RC. 1 at the end of each paragraph, 1 at the end of the entire passage. 3rd is at the end of every question. 4th is at the end of every option. And the 5th one is where you have to, just before you lock your final answer. And you have also mentioned techniques to help you solve summary questions, the odd man out questions and the parajumble questions.
Absolutely.
Perfect. Any sources that you think students can refer to in case they don't remember this particular methods that you have spoken about? Any videos that we have done on YouTube?
We have a lot of videos about this. We teach you the same stuff in class. We have talked about VARC strategy in a lot of our strategy videos. In all our SimCATs, we do everything using all of these strategies. So those of you who have not heard of any of these strategies, you've probably not watched any videos. I mean, that's the only way you will not know. Yeah, so they're out there. Please just watch the videos. So now that we've talked about how to solve questions, how to prepare, I think we should also maybe talk about analyzing performance, right? So I think in maybe quant and DI, people kind of get what they have to do. But in VARC, how would a student analyze their performance?
Okay. So first step usually would be to look at the p-value and check if I have attempted a particular passage. Was it classified overall as an A-level passage, which is an easy passage, or a B-level passage, or a C-level passage? So that will help me.
I'm so sorry. I have a question.
Sure.
What is p-value?
So p-value is a statistical value that we use at IMS. Basically, we look at all the students who take the test during the window period. So we look at how many people who attempted the test, typically the high scorers, 90 percentile plus, how many people attempted that particular question and how many people got it right. So higher the p-value, the easier the question is. So when I say p-value of 80, it means 80% of the students who attempted that question got it right. So the simple mantra you should follow, that every question that was classified as an A, ideally I should have attempted it and I should have gotten it correct. C is, I could have also left it unattempted because it is classified as a difficult question. So it is just a simple technique based on what students do during the test and not based on an individual comment. So it's not me or you or somebody else saying, oh, this is a difficult question. It's based on what the students have done during the test. So that's how p-values work. So A, I would say, I would look at the p-value of a question before deciding was my selection correct. Second, I would look at patterns. So, for example, if there were 3 summary questions on a particular test, and I would look at the last 3-4 SimCATs I have taken and figure out that, okay, I have attempted these 10 questions out of the 15 summary questions. Is there a pattern that maybe I always get the summary questions wrong, or maybe whenever there's a science passage, I tend to get more questions incorrect. So I should know my own patterns where I do go wrong. So recognizing my own strengths and weakness is going to help you a lot, and it's easily done through the analytics tab on my IMS. So most of this is already there on the screen. You just have to look at the right tables, I would say, and then work on it. Thirdly, now we know that, okay, there is a particular structure to the CAT, right? So you typically will have a biology passage, you will have a history passage, you will have a passage based on economic stroke management. So I already know that the chances of me getting a biology passage is very high. So if I have skipped a particular passage during the sim test, I would go back to it after the simcast, use the review mode and still solve that particular passage. So I'm building comfort with that type of passage that usually appears on the CAT. So use the analytics that we give to you. Second, wherever my apparent weaknesses are, I would work to ensure that the next time a similar passage comes on the sim test, I do not make a mistake. That would be my approach. And I know this is a little difficult, but suppose when I was marking a question, specifically RC, I marked option A and I got it wrong. I would scratch my head. I would try to figure out why is option A not the answer. So that's the most important way of improving, I would say, that I would try to listen to your video solution or Ashish sir or Vijita ma'am, whoever was doing that video, and figure out what did they say, why is A not the answer, and accordingly try to learn from that. So that's how I think most students should use and improve on their performance.
No, I'm very happy that you mentioned that last bit, because that's exactly what I tell all the students all the time. Please figure out why your choice is incorrect.
Correct.
Right? So if you can see, if they can figure that out, then ultimately they may not make the same mistake again. I guess that's the logic of it. Okay. So I think we've almost talked about everything that students have asked. Let me just think about if there's anything else left. Okay, I guess maybe if you had to say, what is that one thing that they had to do in order to do well? What would it be? Let's assume that they've not paid attention to this entire video because it was terribly boring for them and they're just listening to this last part. So what would you say they have to do?
See, I generally believe you can't learn swimming by watching swimming videos. You can't learn driving by watching driving videos.
I have tried that, but it didn't work.
It didn't work. Right, hopefully the car is safe now. So I would say yes, watching this video should help build the concepts. But finally, I would say it boils down to practice. So I will summarize what you should do, that have a target that I am going to practice, let's say 200 RCs from now till day of the CAT. I'm going to take, let's say 30 SimCATs from now till day of the CAT, and I'm going to solve 500 parajumble questions. So trying to build that, hitting that number, X number of RCs, Y number of parajumble questions and Z number of full length test, and ensuring that I do that would be the message. So practice, actually solve that RC. Or that VA question is going to be my key mantra, because lot of things will become muscle memory. Like you mentioned in your answers, if I've solved parajumble questions, 100 times previously, the next time I do it on the day of the CAT, it's not going to be too different. More or less, it's going to be similar to what I've already done. Hence, I would say hitting that X number of questions is my mantra if you have to do well on the CAT.
Yeah, I think that, in fact, that's a very good way to handle panic as well, right? So in CAT, if I'm absolutely unsure of what to do, muscle memory needs to kick in and I just do what I've always done. So I think that's a very good point.
Okay, I have a similar question. What is that one thing that students should not do to ensure that they do well on the day of the CAT?
Don't panic. I mean, that's probably one thing you should not do. But other than that, specific to VARC, please do not guess. I think that's the one thing that will save you from the negative marks. VARC, in fact, is the section in which it is very tempting to guess. You don't know what you don't know. So don't guess. Now, even if you feel that your intuition is really great. On the day of the test, how much of risk do you really want to take? I mean, think about it. You may have done that in, say, 10 SimCATs. Try not doing it in the remaining 10 SimCATs and see what happens, right? So in case you realize that your performance improves when you take less risk, maybe that is the way to go.
Okay.
Nevertheless, don't take my word for it. Practice it in the section tests, practice it in the SimCATs and see what happens.
I would like to add to that.
Yeah.
My answer is don't use ChatGPT or any other AI blindly.
Yeah.
So I've seen this increasing trend that, people take a passage, and just put it to ChatGPT and, hey, ChatGPT, what's the answer? I believe you have to take the CAT, not ChatGPT. So the right way to use ChatGPT would be, you say, okay, take this particular paragraph and explain to me as if my teacher is talking to me. So that, if I have misunderstood a particular paragraph, ChatGPT will help me understand that particular paragraph.
Yeah.
Second, you have to tell ChatGPT that, okay, I marked option A, but the answer says option C. So please tell me why is option A not the answer, So make ChatGPT your personal tutor and not let ChatGPT take the SimCAT for you.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, we have to still read that entire passage. A lot of people use ChatGPT to summarize the passage. But please remember, on the day of the CAT, you'll have to still read the entire passage. So don't take shortcuts now, so that again you build stamina for the day of the CAT.
I think that's very true. You should let ChatGPT teach you how to fish and not fish on your behalf. Yeah, I guess.
That's a nice way of putting it. So Kumud ma'am, I would like to continue your question. A lot of people ask, if I have to read, what do I read? What sources should I refer to? And obviously that evergreen question, should I read Eon every day? Will it help me, crack the CAT? What's your opinion on the same?
I think I have a love-hate relationship with Eon. I love the idea of reading it, but I hate actually reading it. So I think that might be true of a lot of students also. Eon is a very good source. I think that the articles are insightful. Yes, it will help. But at the same time, if I have just started reading, then Eon is just scary. So I may not want to start off there.
Okay.
It is something that I could probably get to once I have a little bit of practice. But there are so many other sources out there that you can read from. So first of all, anything that you have already paid for, please make use of those. I mean, that would be common sense. So if you have paid for an IMS program, there is so much out there that is available already. Please read those. There are RC practice sets. There are so many SimCAT passages that you may not have solved. There are so many section tests. Do those. In fact, one of the reasons that we encourage you to do that also is that it will account for that diversity we keep talking about, right? So we've covered passages from every area. We've also covered different difficulty levels, easy, moderate, difficult, everything is there. So why not? I mean, why go out there looking for stuff to read? But if you still have that nagging doubt, am I reading enough? Then again, Eon is not the only place to go. There are other newspapers and magazines that you can read and ensure that you're reading from diverse sources.
Makes sense. Yeah. So diversity is the key.
Absolutely.
And everything is not lost if you can't finish or understand an Eon article.
Absolutely. I'm very happy that you said that.
Okay. Yeah.
So I think this discussion probably has been very fruitful for a lot of our students. So I hope you watched the video. I hope that you learned something from it. If you have any other further questions, please feel free to reach out to us or to your mentors. In case you've not subscribed to the IMS CAT Prep channel, please subscribe to it. Thank you so much for watching.